Imagine having complete control over your finances, knowing exactly where your money is going, and being able to achieve your long-term goals. The 50/30/20 budget is a simple yet effective way to allocate your income towards necessary expenses, discretionary spending, and saving. But does it actually work in practice? In this video, we'll explore the ins and outs of the 50/30/20 budget and provide you with a step-by-step guide on how to implement it in your own life. We'll also share real-life examples of people who have successfully used the 50/30/20 budget to achieve financial stability. But first, let's take a closer look at how the 50/30/20 budget works and why it's so effective. The 50/30/20 rule is a simple and straightforward way to allocate your income. The idea is to divide your income into three categories: necessary expenses, discretionary spending, and saving. Necessary expenses include things like rent, utilities, and groceries, and should make up around 50% of your income. Discretionary spending includes things like entertainment, hobbies, and travel, and should make up around 30% of your income. Saving includes things like emergency funds, retirement accounts, and other long-term savings goals, and should make up around 20% of your income. But how do you calculate these numbers and make sure you're allocating your income correctly? We'll explore this in more detail in the next section. Calculating your necessary expenses is a crucial step in implementing the 50/30/20 budget. Necessary expenses include things like rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, and minimum debt payments. To calculate your necessary expenses, start by tracking your spending over the course of a month to see where your money is going. Then, categorize your expenses into necessary and discretionary spending. Make sure to include all of your necessary expenses, including things like insurance premiums and subscription services. For example, let's say you have a monthly income of $4,000 and your necessary expenses include $1,500 for rent, $500 for utilities, and $500 for groceries. This would put your necessary expenses at $2,500 or 62.5% of your income. But what if your necessary expenses are too high? We'll explore this scenario in the next section. If your necessary expenses are too high, it can be challenging to allocate your income according to the 50/30/20 rule. However, there are several strategies you can use to reduce your necessary expenses. For example, you could try negotiating a lower rent with your landlord or look for ways to reduce your utility bills. You could also consider cutting back on non-essential expenses, such as subscription services or dining out. For instance, let's say you're able to negotiate a $200 reduction in your monthly rent. This would bring your necessary expenses down to $2,300 or 57.5% of your income. But what about discretionary spending? How do you allocate your income towards entertainment, hobbies, and travel? We'll explore this in the next section. Discretionary spending includes things like entertainment, hobbies, and travel. This is the fun part of your budget, where you get to allocate your income towards things that bring you joy and fulfillment. However, it's also important to make sure you're not overspending in this category. To allocate your income towards discretionary spending, start by identifying your priorities. What are the things that bring you the most joy and fulfillment? Then, allocate your income accordingly. For example, let's say you have $1,200 per month for discretionary spending, and you want to allocate $500 towards entertainment, $300 towards hobbies, and $400 towards travel. But what if you want to save for a big purchase, such as a down payment on a house? We'll explore this scenario in the next section. Saving for the future is a crucial part of the 50/30/20 budget. This includes things like emergency funds, retirement accounts, and other long-term savings goals. To allocate your income towards saving, start by identifying your goals. What do you want to achieve in the short term and long term? Then, allocate your income accordingly. For example, let's say you want to save $1,000 per month towards a down payment on a house. You could allocate $500 towards a savings account, $300 towards a retirement account, and $200 towards a brokerage account. But what if you're struggling to save money? We'll explore this scenario in the next section. Avoiding debt is a crucial part of the 50/30/20 budget. High-interest debt, such as credit card debt, can quickly add up and derail your financial goals. To avoid debt, Start by identifying areas where you can cut back on unnecessary expenses. Then, allocate your income towards debt repayment. For example, let's say you have $1,000 per month in credit card debt and you want to pay it off in 6 months. You could allocate $1,667 per month towards debt repayment and cut back on discretionary spending to free up more money in your budget. But what if you're already struggling with debt? We'll explore this scenario in the next section. If you're already struggling with debt, there are several strategies you can use to pay it off. One approach is to focus on paying off high-interest debt first, such as credit card debt. Another approach is to focus on paying off debt with the smallest balances first, such as personal loans or credit card debt. You could also consider consolidating your debt into a single loan with a lower interest rate. For example, let's say you have $10,000 in credit card debt with an interest rate of 20%, and you're able to consolidate it into a personal loan with an interest rate of 10%. This could save you $1,000 per year in interest payments and help you pay off your debt faster. But what about common myths and misconceptions about the 50/30/20 budget? We'll explore this in the next section. There are several common myths and misconceptions about the 50/30/20 budget. One myth is that it's only for people who are struggling financially. However, the 50/30/20 budget is a useful tool for anyone who wants to take control of their finances and achieve their long-term goals. Another myth is that the 50/30/20 budget is too rigid and doesn't allow for flexibility or spontaneity. However, the 50/30/20 budget is actually quite flexible and allows you to allocate your income towards different categories based on your priorities and goals. For example, let's say you want to take a vacation, but you're not sure if you can afford it. You could allocate your income towards savings for a few months and then use that money to pay for your vacation. But what if you make a mistake with your budget? We'll explore this scenario in the next section. Here's what happens if you don't follow the 50/30/20 budget. You might end up overspending in one category and neglecting another. For example, let's say you allocate too much of your income towards discretionary spending and neglect to save for the future. This could leave you without enough money for retirement or without an emergency fund to fall back on. On the other hand, if you allocate too much of your income towards saving, you might miss out on opportunities for entertainment and personal growth. The key is to find a balance between saving for the future and enjoying the present. For instance, let's say you want to save $1,000 per month for a down payment on a house, but you also want to take a vacation. You could allocate $500 towards savings and use the other $500 for discretionary spending. But how do you avoid making mistakes with your budget? We'll explore this in the next section. To implement the 50/30/20 budget, start by tracking your spending over the course of a month. Then, categorize your expenses into necessary, discretionary, and savings. Next, allocate your income towards each category based on your priorities and goals. Make sure to review and adjust your budget regularly to ensure you're on track to meet your goals. For example, let's say you want to save $10,000 in the next year for a down payment on a house. You could allocate $833 per month towards savings and use the 50/30/20 budget to ensure you're not overspending in other categories. But what's the biggest takeaway from the 50/30/20 budget? We'll explore this in the final section. The 50/30/20 budget is not just a theoretical concept. It's a real-life tool that has helped many people achieve financial stability. For example, let's say you're a freelancer who earns $4,000 per month. You could allocate $2,000 towards necessary expenses, $1,200 towards discretionary spending, and $800 towards saving. This would leave you with a comfortable amount of money for entertainment and personal growth, while also ensuring you're saving for the future. Or, let's say you're a couple who earns $6,000 per month. You could allocate $3,000 towards necessary expenses, $1,800 towards discretionary spending, and $1,200 towards saving. This would give you a significant amount of money for savings and debt repayment, while also allowing you to enjoy your lifestyle. But what's the final takeaway from the 50/30/20 budget? We'll explore this in the next section. In conclusion, the 50/30/20 budget is a simple yet effective way to allocate your income towards necessary expenses, discretionary spending, and saving. By following this rule, you can ensure you're saving for the future avoiding debt, and enjoying the present. Remember to track your spending, categorize your expenses, and allocate your income towards each category based on your priorities and goals. And most importantly, be patient and consistent. Achieving financial stability takes time and effort. If you're interested in learning more about personal finance and taking control of your money, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more helpful tips and advice. Thanks for watching, and we hope you found this video helpful. The 50/30/20 budget is a powerful tool for achieving financial stability, and we encourage you to give it a try. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos on personal finance and money management. We'll see you in the next video.